Hi, I'm Kendra.
I'm Olivia.
And Josh.
And this is Our Music Oddcast. And today we're going to be talking about Sam Cooke.
Yeah, and his murder, mysterious death, whatever you want to call it.
Definitely a murder. Well,
I mean, it was.
Yeah.
It just, is it a justifiable murder?
right,
Or
we'll
not?
call it a murder.
Yeah, definitely murder.
And I know nothing, so I'm fascinated to learn.
Yeah.
And you shall.
I shall learn today.
Take notes.
Yeah, Sam Cooke was a famous singer, writer, producer, entrepreneur. He was born in Clarksdale, Mississippi in 1931. He was one of 8 kids born to Reverend Charles Cooke and Annie Mae. And actually, his great-grandmother was a slave. The family moved when Sam was a toddler to Chicago for a safer life and more opportunities. He started singing in a gospel group with his siblings called the Singing Children. Very creative name there. And then went on to join the Highway QCs when he was 14. In 1950, he joined the popular gospel quartet, the Soul Stirrers, after singer R.H. Harris left the group. And that was one of those groups that went on forever. They started and then they just kept, when a member would leave, they'd get new people.
Right.
What's funny about after he joined, because he's a very good-looking guy.
The Soulsters we're talking about?
Yeah, the Soul
Yes,
Stirrers.
I like that name.
Yeah, so in 1950, he joined the popular gospel quartet. It was a quartet when he was in it. I don't know if it always was. Like I said, the funny thing was young girls and women flooded to the churches to see them play. And they had shows outside of churches as well. So people compared it to, Beatlemania, even though this was before
Really?
Beatlemania, on a lower level, yeah, because they'd have
I did
the
not.
people
the
that,
screaming girls.
like rush
Yeah.
the stage, yeah.
I mean, I know about Sam Cooke's music, but you kind of gloss over his gospel years. We're like, he was a
Yeah.
gospel singer for 5 years, and then bam, he
For a
wrote all
long
these
time,
hits.
Actually. I mean, since he was 6 years old.
I did not know that they were that popular.
Fascinating.
Soulsters, eh? Mm.
Yeah, Soul Stirrers.
But
Before
also,
that-
like, in the 40s and stuff like that was a lot of the music out.
Yeah, I mean, you had, like, Sinatra was a rock star, and then I guess gospel was huge, and I don't know, Elvis.
yeah.
He even did religious songs, too.
Yeah, he did. He started out singing gospel. The girls flooded to see Sam's talent and charisma on stage because he was a very charismatic performer. In 1953, he married singer-dancer Dolores Milligan, who is also known as Dee Dee Mohawk. And
That's a great name.
Nice. Sounds like the Ramones. Dee Dee.
I know.
Dee Dee Ramone.
he
was
was
replaced by Dee Dee Mohawk.
Yeah, he was quite the womanizer and was rumored to, at one point, he had 3 girls pregnant at the same time while he was in the Soul Stirrers.
Had he quit singing gospel by this time? Or
No, that's while he was in the Soul
Exactly,
Stirrers. Yeah.
Scandal!
Yeah. And should mention, in the area, the churches were still segregated, but many white women and actually white men as well would come to see them play because they were so popular.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, and when they were touring, because they went on little tours, especially like in the South, they ran into all sorts of issues with where they could stay, where they could eat, and even play due to prejudice and segregation at the time.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely still segregation in the early 60s for sure.
It was really sad too because the one I watched a couple documentaries and one was really good on Netflix. It was called The 2 Deaths of Sam Cooke, but it has Quincy Jones talking about how sometimes he would play shows and he'd have to stay in mortuaries because no place would let him stay.
Wow.
Yeah, and like with dead bodies in there too.
Wow.
Yeah, it was awful.
That's... Wow.
Around that time, well, it was 1955. Emmett Cook, who was Emmett Till, 14-year-old, was brutally murdered after allegedly whistling at a white woman that was walking by in the street. And if you see the pictures, like you see this like adorable little boy, and then you see what doesn't even really look like a person anymore. His face was so big and swollen after like several men beat this kid to death.
That makes me really sad.
Yeah.
I, like, stories like that.
Yeah, just no.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It was a little bit of a turning point for Sam because he was already fed up with the way things were, but after that, he really started to get more involved with the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
The Soul Stirrers had many hits. Their first recording was a cover of Jesus Gave Me Water, which was one of those, like, in gospel, and I mean, even a lot of older music, I mean, rock and roll, a lot of people would cover the same song and just do their own version of it, but they had a really unique version and kind of not launched their career because they already had a big following, but it kind of took them to the next level. But they had other hits, including How Far Am I From Canaan, Jesus Paid the Debt, Peace in the Valley, and One More River. They were signed to Specialty Records and were a huge influence on doo-wop, soul, and the Motown sound.
That's cool.
Yeah, Sam sang in the group from 1950 to 1956, and he began his solo career in 1956 when he put out single Lovable under the name Dale Cooke. He wasn't sure if his gospel fans would react well to his pop soul crossover. And
Like when Dylan went electric. Booed the crap out of him, right?
yeah, I think they even unplugged him at one of the shows, didn't they?
Oh, Dylan?
Yeah,
Probably.
he was playing a show, and wasn't he backed by the band? And I believe that they unplugged the show.
Probably.
Yeah, they like unplugged his guitars and stuff. Like people
Yeah.
freaked out.
That's funny.
Could be wrong about that.
There was
but-
definitely a huge backlash.
Yeah.
I know that.
It was funny because he really didn't fool anyone with the alias, because he has a very unmistakable voice and vocal style. So people people figured out it was him, and they reacted really well. He began recording under his own name. He added E to the end because it didn't have that before. He was kind of a superstitious guy, and he wanted an even number of letters in his name.
Interesting.
Even his father approved of the direction he was going with his music. He said as long as he was using his God-given gift, he was okay with it. His solo career began to take off in 1957 after releasing hit You Send Me. And he appeared on The Guy Mitchell Show. You Send Me went to #1 on Billboard R&B charts and I think that went gold.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's gold's 1 million.
1 million
Yeah, I think
copies
so.
sold, I believe.
Yeah,
I thought that was platinum, but
maybe.
Well, I can't.
I don't know.
You might be right. Maybe
Yeah.
it's 100,000 for gold.
I'm gonna look it up right
Yeah.
now.
Okay.
So we'll come back to that.
Yeah. In 1958, he was
But
asked.
how many streams did he get? 0.
In 1958, Sam was asked by Dick Clark to do a live show in Atlanta. The Klan didn't respond well to the news, and they made several threats against Sam, and even threatened to bomb the studio. And they just bombed a Jewish temple right around that time down there, so it was they took it very seriously. So
Yeah.
Dick Clark actually got the National Guard to come and kind of guard the studio. Not kind of guard the studio, he did,
Yeah.
did guard the studio.
Totally guard the studio.
But yeah, Sam didn't let the threat stop him.
Gold is 500,000.
Oh,
Okay. We were both wrong.
Platinum
Yeah.
is 1 million, and diamond is 10 million.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there was diamond.
I didn't either.
That's for like Michael Jackson,
I
Thriller,
feel like we
and
maybe
stuff like
talked
that.
about another band hitting that, but maybe not. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe like Nirvana had a diamond album.
And Taylor Swift.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
He divorced wife Dolores in 1958, and he married Barbara Campbell in either 1958 or 1959. I saw a couple conflicting reports of that online.
Yeah, the late
Was
50s.
it because he had a bunch of side pieces, or was it because and she kicked him out, or did he dump her?
I didn't find
So
No.
curious.
any
Yeah.
information on why they divorced. He already had a child with Barbara Campbell, his second wife. She was 11 at
course.
the time. Their daughter Linda, she was born in 1953. That might have been one of the 3 women that he had pregnant at the same time when he was in the Soulsters. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I bet like all those people are like ancestry DNA though.
I know.
Yeah.
So curious.
Yeah, he was said to have fathered another child with a boy with Connie Bowling in 1959. And then this was sad to me, but they settled out of court. And I don't know, we don't know the reasons because we don't know specifics. Maybe it was completely false, but just gave the woman $5,000 to like walk away and let it go.
Wow.
So
It's not a lot of money.
No.
At the time though,
Yeah, at the time it would have been, more, but just sad because, over a child's life, they're very expensive.
that is sad.
$5,000 probably didn't do much for her.
No.
He performed on the Arthur Murray Party that same year and played I don't know if I'm saying this right, but it's either Calvasade or Calvacod jazz concert with artists Ray Charles and Sammy Davis Jr. His ex-wife sadly died in a car crash in 1959. That was also another one where it's like some said 58, some said 59, but he paid for her funeral expenses. His second daughter Tracy was born in 1960, and his son Vincent was born in 1961. while on the road, Sam had, like we talked about earlier, but even later during his solo career, had many bad experiences on the road. And in the early 60s, he didn't make it to a show in Georgia because he refused to sit in a Jim Crow bus when riding from the airport to the show.
Wow.
Black taxi drivers weren't allowed to go to the airport, and the white taxi drivers wouldn't take him, so he just sat there and waited.
Wow.
Yeah. Many of the shows were still segregated, and sometimes even the black attendees were charged more, and the white people were sometimes given better seats. Sometimes they put, the black fans up in the balconies, so they weren't allowed to, dance and enjoy the show.
What a disgusting time in our country's history.
It's
Right.
so...
It just makes me so angry to think about. And yeah, like I'm a white girl, so
basic
it's like
human rights.
Yeah, and it's just like, what the fuck? Like,
The silver lining is we've come so far since
But
then.
have we?
I don't think we've come far enough.
I don't either.
personally,
Oh, for sure. But I mean, we had an African American president.
Yeah.
Like in 1960, you would have said, no way, that would never, ever happen in the United
I even
States.
also
ever.
feel a little uncomfortable talking about it as, three white people sitting at a table talking about like, oh,
totally,
has it come
because
far
we
enough?
have
Yeah.
because we do have the white privilege.
Yeah, I don't.
Just
And
I don't have
just
a voice.
like
keeping
we
it
could
real.
understand, and like we could even fathom what it would be.
Yeah,
like.
I should just not talk. To be,
Well, no,
to be
no, no,
completely
no.
honest.
Nope, they definitely get that. But yeah, just noting, like, very sad to hear
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
about
terrible.
these
It's disgusting.
experiences.
It
But I
makes
think
you
it's
sick.
important to learn about that shit too.
It is.
That way, you
Yeah,
do know what you're
it's-
talking about.
And it wasn't that long ago, to be honest.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Jesse Belvin died in a car accident after he was leaving the first segregated show in Arkansas, and they found out that people had slashed his tires, and that's actually what led to the accident. So they killed him, his wife, and there were other people in the car.
Jesus.
Yeah. Sam refused to play a show in 1961 due to the black fans only being allowed to sit up in the balcony.
Wow.
Yeah, he was really influenced by... He was an avid reader, but he was really influenced by James Baldwin, and he encouraged a lot of the artists that he was dealing with, like some of the gospel singers, because he was a big mentor to a lot of people that were trying to become, they were trying to become famous or at least get their songs heard, played by other people even.
Who better to mentor you than
Yeah.
Sam Cooke? Right?
But he influenced a bunch of artists to stop processing their hair and go back to their natural hair.
Huh.
That's a big
interesting.
movement that's happening right now too, and
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Like, as a
Yeah.
hairstylist, I'm like, yes, like I love seeing
Beautiful curls.
the beautiful curls,
Yeah.
but then also like the super
Give me a perm.
interesting textures.
Yeah.
Like, I love afros. I love all of that, and I, as someone that like I have my hair straight right now, but I have naturally curly hair. Like, I always encourage people, like, and I have clients of different ethnicities too. To go natural, just because
Yeah.
I think it's
Looks so much better.
for the hair, and B, like, I mean, flaunt it if you got it.
Yeah.
You know?
Sam started his own label, SAR Records, in 1961 with J.W. Alexander and Roy Crane. The label signed artists like the Valentinos, the Sim Twins.
That's all you need.
SAR Records was a chance for him to write more and support his friends and family, because his brother was, his brother, I think it might be, I'm going to probably say this wrong, but it was another, like, not JW, but it was something like that, Cook. But
Dale Cook Jr.
but yeah, he wanted to give them a fair chance to make money off their music, because other people were making some of their hits famous and they weren't getting any royalties from it. Some people were even paid cocaine for their music.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was awful.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny though.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't in like a fun way. It was kind of like,
Well,
Like,
they
either
definitely
gotta,
got
like-
fucked over.
yeah,
100%.
really, yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, you gotta
Just like
laugh
if
that
we
they
sell
think of
this
that as a
Coke.
currency.
right? Yeah, and he was even quoted saying that in a perfect world, all of his artists would see hits. Like he just really wanted to build up his community.
Yeah. Well, if he wrote them, they probably would.
Well, sometimes they weren't his songs. There were,
Yeah.
because what's his name? Is it Bobby Womack? I think it's Bobby Womack. He wrote a song that the Stones made famous early in their career.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but a lot of that was happening where these people are writing hits that they never really got credit for.
Well, that's like kind of like the dark history of rock and roll too. I mean,
know.
like for so much time, like
It is.
even like Elvis
Yeah,
stealing
like who
songs
wrote
from
all
black
of Elvis's
artists.
songs, right?
Yeah,
He didn't write 'em.
exactly. So yeah, that's really awesome that he was advocating for
Mm-hmm.
everybody to get paid and what they're owed, because yeah, that's still a discussion that happens now.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
The mob became very angry with Cooke because they controlled a lot of the record labels around that time, and they didn't like how he was trying to, take money out of their pocket and give more to the artists, and they worried that would become a trend. So yeah, he received countless death threats, and that will lead into one of the theories of his very horrible death. He started a management and publishing firm, CAGS, before signing with RCA, Victor. While on RCA, he put out hits Chain Gang, Sad Mood, Cupid, Bring It On Home to Me, Another Saturday Night, and Twisting the Night Away. He formed a friendship with Cassius Clay and put out his album and he sang on the song The Gang's All Here. That was in 1963.
Nice.
Cassius Clay
Yeah.
has an album?
I guess. I didn't know that until...
Man, I gotta
doing
look that
research
up.
for this.
100% going to be Googling that shit tonight.
Yeah.
Shaquille O'Neal has an album. It's probably pretty good, too.
Oh.
I didn't know that. Is it called Shack Attack?
I'm sure.
One can only
I'm sure
hope.
it is, yeah.
At the time, Clay was being mentored by Malcolm X, introduced him to Sam, and both wanted to improve the life of their communities, and they wanted to create more opportunities. Sam was introduced to, unfortunately, accountant and CPA Alan Klein the same year. He knew of Sam's dissatisfaction with the label over royalty disputes, and he audited RCA and realized that the label owed Sam a lot of money. He signed a 5-year contract with Klein in 1963 to manage CAG's music and SAR Records, and together they formed the business Tracy Limited, named after his daughter, a holding company that would work with RCA to distribute his music, and then they were gonna, all the artists that were signed to his label too. That was the plan. And sadly, Sam's son Vincent drowned in 1963 as well in the family pool at their LA home.
That's
I
sad.
know, he was only 3 years old. Sam started drinking really heavily and staying home less to deal with his grief. He went on tour right away.
Yeah.
Sadly, he blamed his wife for leaving the toddler unattended by the pool. I think that's, unavoidable in some of those situations.
I think,
A lot of the parents blame each other.
I mean,
or someone else.
Back in the 50s, there weren't even seatbelts in cars, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying you leave a kid by a pool, but
at the same time,
Accidents
anytime
happen.
a child dies, it's always going to
Yeah.
put tension in a marriage.
Yeah.
there's someone who's to blame. A kid doesn't just die.
But then at the same time, it's still just a tragic accident.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
It's horrible.
Yeah, he really threw himself into his work. And he was really inspired by Bob Dylan's Blowing in the Wind and decided to let politics come through a little bit more in his music. He wanted to encourage social change, and he wrote a song, A Change Is Gonna Come. And sadly, one of the verses, it wasn't even, I don't have exactly what, I should have written that down, what it said, but it was something like, they don't want me to come around here or something, or come down here, talking about being in a certain area of town. And it wasn't offensive, or not that it would have been anyway, but just something that you wouldn't think that they would force him to take out, but they made him take that out of the song because they were afraid that people wouldn't like hearing that.
Well, okay, so it kind of goes with that whole thing too of even with the current dialogues and stuff like that happening, having a white guy say that, talk about wanting to change and stuff like that, the bigots are more likely to be less offended by a white guy saying it.
Oh, this is Sam's song. Yeah.
No, I'm saying about Dylan.
Like if Bob Dylan says
Bob
it's
Dylan
different,
says
right?
that it's time for change and this is fucked up that somebody can't go there. All the racist assholes will be offended, but less offended than if they heard a black person saying that, which is not okay, obviously, that people feel that way in general because obviously they're terrible people, but I don't know. I think that's really sad that he had to be edited
I know.
like that because that could have been really powerful if he was allowed to keep that in the song.
Yeah. When Cassius Clay was named heavyweight champ in 1964, the friendship of the singer, boxer, and activist Malcolm X became a threat to the FBI. There's even documents where they were talking about how they were surveilling the three of them. And they redacted the names, but you can tell because it's talking about, activist singer.
Right.
But yeah, there was concern that Sam would become a Muslim and influence his fans to convert. That's crazy that's what one of their big concerns was...
Like, what is it with the government being obsessed with people's religious fucking
know.
habits?
Yeah.
Oh, that's stupid.
He recorded his Live at Harlem Square album in 1963, which sadly wasn't released until 85 because
Holy.
they considered it to be too...
When did he record it?
1963. They considered it to be too gritty and raw, which it was a racist thing. They were, they thought that it would, not appeal to his white fans. And they said that they were afraid that it would tarnish the singer's name.
Wow.
It's a beautiful album. I actually listened to a podcast where this guy, he goes through the album, they talk about the songs, and he had Neil deGrasse Tyson on talking about it. And it was funny because,
nice.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Scientist. Talking
and
about music, why not?
Yeah, I mean, he talks about music and all sorts of other things too, but it was a good listen. Look for it.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah. But Sam became aware after taking a few days off while sick with the flu that he was going through documents about his business, Tracy Limited, with Alan Klein, but he was not listed as owner of the company, which he should have been. Alan Klein was, and he was listed as an employee. So that meant that he owned all of Sam's material, all of his songs.
Which was pretty common back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Like the
Klein
artists, Beatles
went
didn't
on
own their
to-
songs, Rolling Stones didn't own their songs.
Well, the funny thing is, he worked with both of them. They say that he's one of the people that was responsible
That
for
son of
breaking
a
up the
bitch.
Beatles, and he ripped off the Stones, and that's why they don't
Yeah.
play a lot of their early stuff.
Wow.
Because this guy owns the rights.
He
I mean,
did.
he's dead
He's
now.
did.
Yeah,
but
he's
yeah,
dead,
his family or whoever owns it now owns it.
Yeah, and he did some sketchy stuff, like rotating positions and people on the board, so the people that could actually, make these decisions. Because at one point it was supposed to be Sam and his father and, people that were already in business with him for the record company. And he rotated all those people out. And at the time of Sam's death, like, he was in charge, and then he moved his wife to, like, the secretary position. And just really...
My dog is the president of the company now, and he
Wow.
says...
Yeah, really
Shady stuff.
So he had made plans to meet with Klein, because he found out on a Thursday, but he made plans to meet with Klein that following Monday, and he was going to fire him, but sadly, Sam didn't survive the weekend. On December 11th, 1964, while out to dinner with producer Al Schmid, Sam met Elisa Boyer at a bar called Martoni's, and unfortunately, Sam had just gone off tour, and he had $5,000 cash with him, and he whipped it out at the bar, and I guess it was kind of obvious that it was happening. He had been drinking, and he wasn't being shy about the money. Al Schmid and his wife left, and Sam was still at the bar with, Lisa Boyer at the time, and they went on to another club called PJ's and eventually ended up at the seedy motel in LA, the Hacienda Motel, which a lot of people that were friends with Sam talked about. I mean, he wasn't shy about his extramarital affairs. It didn't seem like something that he went out of his way to hide. And they were saying that wasn't the kind of place that he would stay. He didn't need to. He didn't need to stay at a seedy hotel far from, where he was living at the time.
Right.
So there's a lot of people think that maybe this was suggested by the woman. So they check into the hotel, and he goes in and he signs, and he actually puts that it's Sam Cooke and his wife. But the woman's sitting in the car, and she doesn't try to leave, doesn't do anything. She, just kind of sits there happily.
Well, she's a prostitute, right? Why would she leave?
Well, this is all part of the story. At this time, she's not admitting that she's a prostitute or that this was, something they agreed. I mean, who knows if he even knew that she was a prostitute. Okay. We don't know. So then, allegedly, against her will, he took her up to the hotel room and threw her down on the bed and started ripping her clothes off. But then he goes into the bathroom to take a shower, or maybe just go to the bathroom. There's a lot of conflicting information out there. But she then decides that this is her chance to flee, and she grabs all of his stuff. She grabs his socks, his pants, his $5,000.
His $5,000, naturally. Yeah, whoops.
Yeah, and disappears. So he comes out of the bathroom. All that's left is his shoes and like a jacket. And he goes to the manager's office of the hotel, and apparently, well, this is what, the story goes that he was, pounding on the door, insisting that she tell him where the girl was, and he breaks down the door. You never know in these situations, but a lot of family and friends said that he was not a violent man. He'd never been accused of doing anything violently, physically or sexually. Even people after, which...
Yeah.
There's no way he left $5,000 sitting on a bed with a woman he doesn't know.
Yeah.
In a place he's never been before, and then takes a shower. There's no way that happens.
Right.
Because $5,000 is like $50,000. You would never just leave. Oh, I'm just going to go to take a piss.
Right. There's so many things that are weird about this story.
Yeah.
But that's what she said. And he's, fighting with the owner of the hotel, and her name is Bertha Franklin. So she says that, he breaks on the
Big
door,
Bertha.
she's fighting with him, and then she actually shoots him 3 times in the chest at this point. She beat him with a broom.
Gangsta.
Some stories say that she beat him with a broom after he was laying on the ground dying. Some said it was before. Some said that he was beat with her gun after he was shot. So Elisa Boyer at this point, she goes to a phone booth and calls the police, and it's a really weird phone call, and says that she's been kidnapped, but she doesn't know where she is. And it's not far from the hotel, and they find her, and they take her back to question her. And that's when, she tells that she was trying to avoid being raped, and she left with this stuff, which the $5,000 is gone at this point.
Of
It's
course.
just gone. Yeah.
Of course.
Disappeared.
So are like the theories that it was like a pimp, or like what are the theories here?
It sounds like there would be
we'll
a
get to
third
there,
party
sorry.
involved.
Okay, so they're investigating the scene, and 5 days later at an inquest, it wasn't investigated. They didn't care who this guy was. They just saw, a black man in a deceiving
Another black
hotel.
man killed at a hotel, right?
That's sad.
Yeah, it's really
so there was a lot
terrible.
of information that wasn't collected. There was
same
evidence
with-
that wasn't.
They
and-
did that same thing to Robert Johnson too. I mean, he was like
Yeah.
left
Oh my
by the
gosh.
side of the road, and like he has an unmarked grave. Like that's
Yeah.
so sad.
There was even a lot of stuff that wasn't mentioned in the autopsy report. There was,
Just
marks
total
on his body.
negligence.
There's marks on his leg that
completely.
weren't like acknowledged in the autopsy report
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, so obviously
So after 15
that's
minutes,
so sketchy.
Yeah,
That
both
sucks.
Yeah.
both women testified at this hearing, and the woman, Elisa Boyer, the prostitute, she wore sunglasses inside, and she seems like she's acting really badly. I mean, who knows? Because if like something happened and he treated this woman badly, maybe it was just hard to tell the story in front of other people. I don't know. I do think that Bertha Franklin came across a little bit more believable, but she also seemed like she completely did not give a shit at all about this, killing this man. You think you would still care that you killed a person, even
Right.
if it was in self-defense. It would still
Yeah.
bother you slightly, and especially, sitting in front of his family, talking about killing him. To add insult to injury, Bertha Franklin sued his estate for $200,000 for physical injuries and mental anguish after Sam Cooke's attack.
Did she get rewarded that money?
His wife countersued for $7,000 to just cover his funeral expenses, and she did win. Bertha won, and she walked away with $30,000. So she didn't get the $200,000, but she
Fuck Bertha.
yeah, and she was even rumored to be a pimp, and that's part of what people think happened, that she was maybe this girl's pimp or
100%.
somehow involved
Yeah.
with her pimp, and they planned this robbery together. I mean, that's what seems.
That definitely all
Seems
adds up.
plausible.
Yeah.
Definitely all adds up.
So Boyer was arrested a month later, and she was actually trying to do the same thing. It was a sting operation, but she was trying to solicit sex, and then she was trying to like rob the person.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 1979, she was arrested for murder. She murdered her boyfriend.
So did she ever go to fucking jail?
Oh yeah, I think she's still alive in jail
Oh, okay.
now.
Well, if you're listening to this, Bertha, you're a bitch.
Oh, not Bertha, Elisa.
Oh.
Well,
yeah.
Bertha's a bitch
Well,
too.
also, Lisa, you're a bitch.
The weird thing is, she was questioned somewhat recently about the whole thing again, and they said that she's like mentally deteriorated.
Oh,
a
I'm
lot
sure.
at this
But
point.
also, like,
but her story
yeah.
didn't change, which that can mean also that it was like very rehearsed and like this was the story. I know it
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
rehearsed it so many
I'll
times.
redact my bitch
Or, like,
statement because, like,
maybe
you never
it was
know.
True. You
She
don't
could have
know.
been forced into it. Like, she could have owed somebody money. She could have had her life on the line.
Yeah.
There's a million things that could go into it. But
The
at the
thing is,
same
though,
time, like
after
if
she was in
history's
jail-
repeating itself like that.
Oh, I know, but like after she was in jail for murder, she could, even if there were, all kinds of situations where people were threatening her life, she could have done the right thing and told the truth.
Totally.
I'm not saying that she might not be lying. I shouldn't jump to conclusions. Just after everything that I went through, I do think that this was, a failed robbery attempt. But there are other theories as well. Yeah, some people think that maybe it was the FBI.
Like, even if Lisa's story is legit,
Yeah.
like, all I'm saying is, like, that Bertha lady 100% knew what she was doing in
Yeah.
that situation. Like, did she ever go to jail?
No,
No?
they barely even investigated the crime, but they ruled that it was necessary.
Self-defense.
And
Yeah,
when she
self-defense.
shot him with a gun that was a .32 caliber,
Yes.
or she owned a .32 caliber pistol, but the bullets that killed him were a
The
22 caliber, which
but those
either,
were lost, of course. The bullets were
yeah,
lost.
so either it was somebody else's gun and she shot him, or somebody else had a different gun who probably shot him.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean that could explain why he was beaten so badly. So
Right.
yeah,
I can't
theories-
see she didn't look very big, and Sam Cooke's a dude. Maybe she overpowered him, caught him by surprise.
When this fight happened too,
But like if you
remember,
came at
he's
me
just
right now, I
wearing,
think I would
like,
drop you.
a jacket and shoes and like completely naked.
Wow.
Which also that part alone seems really suspicious to me. It doesn't seem like maybe that didn't happen there. Maybe, and they even talked about there wasn't enough blood pooling, so maybe he was killed somewhere else and then taken there.
Right.
There's a lot of theories. There's a couple different Reddit pages that are dedicated just to the different theories. But yeah, they thought maybe the FBI because Malcolm X was killed the same year and so was Martin Luther King. So they don't know
maybe.
maybe the mob because they had threatened him. And maybe this was all set up by the mob because Bertha had mob connections.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Then.
And it would maybe explain why he was beaten so badly.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that he was doing for progressive change that the haters would try to silence for sure.
Yeah. I forgot to mention that both women did pass a lie detector test. That doesn't mean shit, really, because I don't think those are reliable.
But were they asked, like, was anyone else there? Was there a mobster?
Never said
you know what I mean?
what
Like,
they were asked.
Yeah, there's so many things that could go into that.
Yeah, and then, last one, which I think is probably the least likely. Some people thought that maybe Alan Klein had him killed because he found out that he was going to lose. Which I think that, even if Sam Cooke was going to go fire him, he still has contracts signed saying that he's in charge of this company. So it would have gone to court. Who knows how long that would have taken. So we don't know that he would have lost Sam's rights and all his, all the stuff that he had signed over to himself.
Wow.
I think the Alan Klein thing's really far-fetched.
Yeah, it was said that he didn't really have
Alan
the reach
Klein's
at the
gonna hire
time.
a prostitute, and I just don't see that happening. He's a business guy.
Yeah,
I don't know, maybe.
Oh, and also people that were staying at the hotel at the time didn't hear any gunshots.
Oh, yeah, that's weird. That's so sketchy.
So pointing to where he may have been out by the river and like shot, and then they brought him to the hotel or whatever.
Yeah,
totally.
But like some of the injuries that weren't mentioned,
especially the fact that it was at a hotel that nobody could really like think that he would normally go to anyway. It's like obviously
so
like,
many problems with the story.
Murdered and then driven there.
It could all be true. It could have happened exactly like they said it did, but
right,
I just don't.
I definitely like always condone like believing women.
Me too.
Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, like there's so much other stuff going on with that
even
it's like
so much that she's a prostitute that made her less believable to me. Like that didn't matter.
Like
it was the fact that she was busted a month later doing the exact same thing,
like setting up a robbery.
Yeah.
There's just enough cracks in Sam Cooke's character to make it sort of possibly believable. To where he was a womanizer and but it's kind of flimsy.
But that also kind of, with that you could also say that, he had women that were, definitely willing to have sex with him without money being involved.
Without paying for it. Yeah.
There's a lot of people like that got accused. Like Kobe Bryant got accused of the same thing.
That wasn't with a prostitute though.
It was with like a hotel worker who claimed that he forced her to have sex. I'm like, Kobe Bryant has like $100 million. Is he really going to force anyone to have sex?
Yeah, that's true.
But
I didn't think about that.
It happened. Then they settled out of court.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and but yeah, officially it still stands. Nobody's reinvestigated this. Nothing else has happened. Sadly, she hasn't, like I said, come forward with any other information.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like,
yeah,
I'm just thinking about it because I've never heard this story before. So I wanted to be surprised with this one, and it's like that's a lot of stuff to process. I don't know, like there's so many possibilities of what could have happened or who could have been behind it. But even with it just being like a robbery gone fatal, you know, like there's so many questions with like, if no one else in the hotel heard a gunshot, like was it just because it was that type of hotel where no one was a snitch? Or was it like...
Were there so many gunshots going off in the streets that you just were so used to you didn't hear it?
Or was he shot somewhere else and brought there like to cover it up?
Didn't say like how close these people were to...
And just because gunshots weren't reported being heard, maybe it was like, I'm not a snitch, I ain't telling nothing.
Yeah,
maybe there were gunshots.
I mean, maybe it happened by where she had the phone call, saying that she got kidnapped and that was her alibi or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, who knows? There's so many things that could have been.
Yeah.
That's just really sad, though. Like, it's sad to see that, like, someone that was trying to do something. Like,
I know.
Yeah, he was a womanizer, and, like, that always sucks or whatever. But, like, most musicians, like, in these stories typically tend to be. Like, not saying all musicians, obviously, but, like, it's interesting.
There was one final, I even, questioned mentioning this, but Bobby Womack, artist from the Valentinos, who's actually a friend of Sam Cooke's, he married his second wife 3 months after his death, and they said that maybe there was something going on there before, and they were saying that, that could be a possibility too, that he had Sam killed or killed Sam. But yeah, I think that's even less likely than the Alan Klein option.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never know.
Like, super sad story, though. I mean,
that
the
is
guy,
sad.
I think he was 33 years old at the time of his death, which is horrible. And he had kids. Not that it's not sad.
He had a lot of kids, apparently.
Yeah.
a lot of different women.
Potentially.
I don't know how
more
many
kids than anyone knows about. I'm just saying, if you have any similar features.
Do you like the soul stirs?
Are you descended from Sam Cooke?
Yeah.
Like, inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, I guess on a positive side, after his death, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 86. In 87, he was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame.
Good.
The Soul Stirrers were in 89.
Yes.
And then 1994, he was awarded a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In 1999, he received a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. And then even, I don't know if you
presented by Lionel Richie.
But Obama, when he was running for office, part of his campaign, I forget what the slogan was, but it was something about, it was inspired by Sam's song, A Change Is Gonna Come, and then they even played that song.
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah.
They should,
so,
I like that he was awarded things post-mortem. But it's also sad that it's like he didn't get to see the Grammy or those awards in his lifetime. Like, that's really sad.
It's really sad.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, to be awarded a Grammy in the fucking 90s, like 99, what was it? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
When he
you had
died.
to battle like Celine Dion for Grammys back then.
64.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, like over 30 years later. Like, that's crazy. Like, I mean, I'm glad that it happened, but it's like, it's sad that it didn't happen earlier.
I know. Think about he should have been winning all kinds of awards. He really should have. I mean,
totally.
Oh, every song he wrote was a hit.
I mean, he was number 2 under Elvis on the charts, which is huge. That is
huge, and he deserves that. But it's did he win any Grammys or anything while he was alive?
He didn't.
That's sad.
It's very sad.
That's sad. Like, that dude, like, I wasn't sure. I was like, have I heard Sam Cooke? And you named off all the songs. I'm like, I've heard every single one of those. Those are great songs. Yeah.
He kind of opened the door for, like, change.
Well, yeah,
for,
and
like,
even inspired Motown.
African Americans to start record labels and ownership of rights and for songs.
I think that's awesome.
That's interesting.
Like, yeah, I didn't know any of that about him. And now I'm like, that's huge. I learned a lot today. And and all these stories about, premature deaths are really sad, and it's hard to research because you're so absorbed in that world while you're doing it. But this one hit me a little bit harder than some of the other ones because he wasn't out doing drugs. He wasn't living kind of like the high-risk lifestyle, except, I mean, if he did try to, I mean, I guess you can consider, like, getting involved with prostitutes, high-risk lifestyle, but I don't know. It sounds like him flashing the money at the bar made him an easy mark. It's like for somebody.
Yeah.
Like,
so sad because
he probably didn't even know that girl was a prostitute. Like you guys were saying, like it's not like he couldn't get it.
Right.
But it's sad because when you find out like he was drinking more because he was grieving the loss of his child, he had this like terrible thing going on with all of his work.
Yeah.
Like I probably, I mean, I could imagine, acting stupid and maybe like getting like
I've made some terrible choices when I've been in high stress situations like that. Like, I mean, I haven't had anything comparing to like losing a child, but like.
And I'm not trying to justify in case like this did happen.
But I'm just saying, like if you like all those things aligned, like you're not going to make the best choices.
Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't mean that he's a piece of shit or anything.
Yeah,
like,
and he was
he's
a young
definitely
guy.
not a piece of shit.
I brought up the point yesterday that maybe he had a completely dual like set of lifestyles and personality that was completely different than what everyone saw. Like I talked about OJ.
Yeah.
Before the Ron Goldman or
people knew that he was beating his wife though. Like family friends.
Like the public image of him, he was this all-American like sportscaster, football legend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And mild-mannered, and that's what the public saw. Maybe Sam Cooke had this other side like OJ had.
But you would wonder, like even like this long after his death, like if like why wouldn't somebody come forward with that?
Yeah, totally.
But also like I'm glad that things like that didn't come out because like it would have just made his work that he did that was so important look not as good as it was. You know what I mean? Like so I'm glad to hear that there weren't these terrible stories.
Yeah.
That came out about him because I don't want him to be invalidated.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Sam Cooke's not more famous.
Well, they're saying
than
that
he is.
because of this, the way that he died, because it kind of tainted his reputation. They're saying that that's why, he isn't known by everyone.
I mean, everyone knows who Elvis is, like, beyond doubt. But, like, he was number 2 under Elvis at the time. And people were like, Sam Cooke, I think I know him. Maybe I don't. It's interesting to see how it faded like that.
That is interesting.
It shouldn't have.
You shouldn't have. I'm going to listen to Sam Cooke tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should listen to the Live at Harlem album. It's great.
Oh, that one's good. Yeah.
There's so much to take in. Sorry, I'm just like, wow, that's like a flabbergasting
You've
story.
got time to take it in, though, Kendra.
I know. I have nothing to do but sit and contemplate Sam Cooke, and I'll come back like, okay, can we do a follow-up?
So
Part 2.
would be the potential lizard person in this story? Was it Bertha Franklin, Lisa Boyer, Alan
I think it's
Klein?
Bertha because she tried to sue him for $200,000 or sue his widow, who's also grieving the loss of a child. Like, what a heartless cunt.
I vote for Alan Klein. We don't know much about him. We never really
We're
saw.
going to talk about in another mini episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about his widow. I'm not going to tell you guys anything yet, but it's a crazy story. It's not what she did. Like, she didn't do it. She was in the crazy
She's involved.
One. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, terrible situation, but yeah, so something to look forward to. But
curious. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, I think Bertha's a lizard person.
I think Alan Klein is the lizard person in this situation.
Yeah, he's like the creepy.
Because he ended up,
like the emperor up in the tower.
Money out of the situation.
He got all the money.
Still does. I mean, the company the ABCO still owns the rights to his music.
Scientology, I say, they're involved. I don't know.
I don't think it'd been thought up yet.
Yeah.
Oh, whatever.
Oh, ridiculous. All right. Well, I'm not sure what we're talking about next time, but I'm sure we'll come at you with something soon.
Yep.
Quarantine episode 2.
Yeah. So hopefully everybody stays healthy, stays safe, stays home if you're supposed to stay home.
Stay home if you can, please.
Yeah, and one thing we decided not to start our Patreon account while while people are out of work and facing this pandemic. So we decided to hold off on that.
You can't buy toilet paper? Give us $3.
But if you like us, please review and tell a friend about us. Anything helps.
Yeah. It's also cool to see feedback.
Yeah.
Or if you ever have stories or opinions. We definitely love taking suggestions on topics to cover. That would be great. And hope you all have a wonderful day or evening or night or 3 a.m. or whenever you're listening to this.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.